That's the problem. You're the distraction. We ain't had a hit since you've been around. Stop talking.
What started as a so-called business partnership quickly turned into one of the wildest behind-the-scenes stories modern hip-hop has seen. Wack100 was supposed to guide and protect Blueface, but instead the situation feels like a long play where serious money quietly slipped through the cracks. This breakdown shows how one of the most talked about managers in the culture allegedly moved everything right out in the open. Wack100, born Cash Jones, is a longtime music manager from Los Angeles, known for loud opinions, constant controversy, and always standing next to artists surrounded by chaos. He built his name in the streets before pivoting into the industry, managing artists like The Game and Ray J. But out of all his moves, his connection to Blueface might be the most profitable and the most questionable situation of them all. Blueface, born Jonathan Porter, was just a young artist from LA who fell into fame almost by accident. His viral track Oceania took off fast, but he had no understanding of contracts, managers, or how the industry really works. He wasn't polished, wasn't trained, and wasn't protected. Just a street-smart artist making noise and learning as he went, which made him vulnerable to someone far more experienced. At the time, Blueface had no legal team, no management, and no real structure, with money moving fast and no blueprint, according to Blueface himself. That's when Wack stepped in heavy, pressing meetings and pushing influence like he already controlled the situation. The connection started after Wack100's daughter heard Oceania and put him onto the song. Not long after, Wack reached out directly, trying to line up a sit-down. Blueface wasn't interested at first. A quick search pulled up drama, arguments, and messy headlines tied to Wack's name, which made him stay guarded. Blueface later admitted that Wack's reputation made things awkward, especially with their different street affiliations. Still, Wack kept pushing with constant calls and messages, pressing for a meeting at his house like time was running out. At that point, Blueface was handling everything himself. He was booking shows, shooting videos, and running business solo while labels like Atlantic Records and Empire Records were circling but didn't fully understand his background. Then one moment at a park in his neighborhood shifted everything. Wack called again, sent a car, and this time Blueface went. When Blueface arrived at Wack100's mansion, the visual hit immediately. The house, the lifestyle, the energy all signaled success. Blueface later explained that seeing someone who clearly had it hits differently, and that image alone made him believe Wack could elevate his career. That was the setup Wack wanted. The mansion wasn't just a home, it was part of the pitch. Everything about the moment was designed to impress and lower Blueface's guard before any serious business talk began. Things shifted quickly after that. Wack already had the contract printed and ready before Blueface even arrived. There was no long discussion, no clear breakdown of terms, and no real explanation. Just paperwork waiting to be signed, which raised serious questions about how rushed the process was. The most uncomfortable moment came next. Blueface looked at Wack's wife and asked her directly if she would advise her own son to sign that same contract. She said yes. That answer carried weight because Blueface believed a mother wouldn't steer someone towards something harmful. Based on that moment, Blueface signed immediately. There was no lawyer present, no time to review the deal, and no real understanding of what the paperwork locked him into. He trusted the room and the people who clearly had more experience than he did. Later, the details started coming out. The deal wasn't just management. It combined both a management deal and a record deal. That meant Wack was collecting money twice from the same income stream. First, 50% off the top from music earnings, then another 20% as management from what remained. That's an unusually large cut. DJ Academics publicly broke it down and labeled it double dipping. In most situations, artists avoid signing both deals with the same person because it creates a clear conflict of interest. Normally, managers take around 15 to 20%, and record deals split profits more evenly after expenses. This setup gave Wack the advantage from every angle while Blueface took the hit long term. And this wasn't a short run either. These deals stretch across years and multiple albums, meaning that cut never stopped. It just kept flowing. Fast forward to now, and the results speak for themselves. Blueface came home from jail with very little to show financially. Despite platinum records and major visibility, even his restaurant venture hasn't moved the way people expected, which makes the situation feel even heavier. When an artist is only keeping around 30% of what they earn, it becomes almost impossible to build anything solid for the future. Investments stall, businesses struggle, and long-term plans fall apart quickly. Most of Blueface's money has reportedly been flowing straight to Wack100, and now there's talk that Blueface may even have to let go of his house. That alone shows how damaging these types of deals can be to an artist's financial future. While Wack continues living large and posting luxury online, the artist who actually made the music is left scrambling. What makes this even more extreme is that Blueface is still locked into the agreement. These contracts are designed to trap artists, making exits nearly impossible unless they're willing to burn serious money on legal fights and penalties. And it matters how young Blueface was when this happened. He was barely in his early 20s, fresh out of the streets, with no real business education and no protection around him. That experience gap created the perfect setup for someone seasoned to structure a deal that leaned heavily in their own favor. This situation goes beyond one artist. It highlights a larger industry pattern where experienced players pressure young talent into bad deals using flashy lifestyles, urgency, and psychological tactics.
I always knew Blueface was pretty stupid. I'll tell you why. Blueface is signed to Wack100 and managed by Wack100. Let me tell you how this works. When you sign to a label, they take at least half already. Then you're getting managed by the guy who owns the label. So of your 50% that you're getting, or less than 50%, he's still taking at least 20% of that too.
Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. Contracts ready before conversations, stacked deals, and no room for legal review. One of the most calculated moves was using family influence to make the deal feel safe and trustworthy. That's not guidance. That's pressure wrapped in comfort. Wack may argue he helped elevate Blueface's career, but taking close to 70% of someone's earnings crosses any reasonable line. When one person controls the money, the moves, and the direction, that's not partnership, that's control. And when control runs that deep, the artist is the one paying the price. Over time, that adds up to millions of dollars that should have stayed in the artist's own pocket. If there's one lesson that hits hardest here, it's this: never sign anything without a lawyer reviewing it first. It doesn't matter how cool someone seems, how rich they look, or how smooth the offer sounds. Independent legal advice is non-negotiable. Real mentorship doesn't come with a 70% cut attached. The mansion, the lifestyle, and the flex created an illusion that made Blueface believe he could reach the same level just by signing. What he couldn't see at the time was how that wealth was built. Wack100's money didn't come from one success story. It came from stacking massive percentages across multiple artists. And the damage from deals like this goes far beyond money. When artists can't keep their earnings, they can't invest in their families, their communities, or anything long-term. That keeps them stuck in the same cycle. Any solid entertainment lawyer would have spotted the red flags immediately. Combined management and record deals, extreme percentages, and no cooling off period. All of that would have been renegotiated or shut down completely with even basic industry education. If Blueface had known the standard rules, he would have understood that double dipping at that level isn't normal and definitely isn't fair. There was also fake urgency involved, pressure to sign fast so there's no time to think, research, or ask the right questions. At the same time, Blueface already had interest from labels like Atlantic Records and Empire Records. Those were real options that likely would have left him in a much stronger position. Instead, he's now dealing with the fallout: limited options, strained finances, and assets on the line, while the person on the other side continues collecting off his success. His work helped build someone else's wealth, but the contract made sure he couldn't build the same future for himself. At this stage, the only real option left is to keep grinding under the same terms and hope volume somehow makes up for that small 30%. That's a brutal position to be in because no matter how hard you work, the math is already stacked against you. And that pressure doesn't stop at the bank account. It hits mentally too. Waking up every day knowing most of your effort is lining someone else's pocket starts wearing you down. Motivation slips. Creativity takes a hit. That mental weight builds fast. Instead of focusing on growth, artistry, and long-term vision, the artist ends up stuck in survival mode. Every song, every appearance, every move feels less rewarding when the payoff barely reaches you. Over time, that kind of setup drains passion, dulls ambition, and turns what should be exciting into frustration and distrust. Other artists are watching this closely. Situations like this quietly turn into case studies across the industry. They teach hard lessons without anyone having to say a word. It highlights exactly why proper representation, legal awareness, and patience matter so much. What's happening between Blueface and Wack100 doesn't resemble a healthy manager-artist relationship anymore. It looks more like control than collaboration. Real managers are supposed to work for the artist. They protect earnings, build leverage, and open doors. They don't structure deals where they win no matter what. This setup feels like an extreme version of a 360 deal, and even most of those don't come close to taking 70%. By any industry standard, that's excessive. If deals like this start becoming normalized, it sends a dangerous message. It tells young artists that desperation is enough to justify unfair terms. These situations don't stay trapped on paper either. They damage trust, strain personal relationships, and leave resentment that doesn't fade easily. Blueface likely saw Wack as a mentor and protector in the beginning. Realizing that trust came with heavy strings attached is a tough wake-up call. When artists can't build wealth from their own success, their families feel it too. Relatives, people depending on them, and future opportunities all take a hit. Add financial stress, legal pressure, and the feeling of being trapped, and the mental toll becomes unavoidable. Success is supposed to bring stability, not constant anxiety. When most of the reward goes elsewhere, it becomes harder to justify giving maximum effort. That's a reality the industry can't keep ignoring. A lot of bad decisions could be avoided with basic education. Understanding contract language, standard percentages, and long-term consequences before signing anything can save careers. Peer guidance matters too. Artists who've already survived the industry are often the only ones willing to warn newcomers about quiet traps and deals that look good on the surface but turn toxic over time. At the end of the day, Blueface took the biggest hit here. A young artist who caught lightning with a viral record should have been positioned for long-term security. Instead, that moment became the foundation for someone else's wealth. That's the real issue. This isn't just one bad decision. It's a system that keeps rewarding the wrong people. It goes beyond one contract or one manager. The industry has a long history of experienced business players taking advantage of artists who don't yet understand power, leverage, and money. Until transparency, education, and accountability become standard, stories like this won't stop. They'll just repeat with new faces. The takeaway is simple. Knowledge is power. Trust is fine, but verification is non-negotiable. A deal that sounds life-changing today can quietly drain millions over time if the fine print isn't checked. If Blueface's experience helps even one artist slow down, ask questions, and protect their future, then something meaningful comes out of this situation. And when you step back and look at the full picture, this situation isn't just about one artist or one manager. It's about how the system keeps allowing the same mistakes to repeat with new faces. Blueface's story shows how fast success can turn into a long-term burden when the business side isn't handled right from day one. The industry moves fast, especially when a viral moment hits. Money starts coming in, attention multiplies, and everyone around the artist suddenly has answers. But speed is exactly what makes young artists vulnerable. When things move too fast, there's no time to slow down, ask questions, or fully understand what's being signed. That's where bad deals thrive. What makes this situation hurt more is the lost potential. Blueface had momentum, visibility, and real leverage early on. Those moments don't come around often. With the right structure, fair representation, and patience, that energy could have been turned into long-term security. Instead, most of the value created from that success flowed away from the person who actually earned it. This isn't about denying that management plays a role. Artists do need guidance, strategy, and protection, but guidance should empower the artist, not box them in. A real team works to increase the artist's ownership, not quietly drain it. When deals are built so one side wins regardless of outcome, that's not support, that's extraction. Another hard truth is that pressure doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks friendly. Sometimes it looks like mentorship, reassurance, or comfort. When urgency is mixed with trust, people stop asking questions. And once the paperwork is signed, the power dynamic shifts permanently. By the time the artist realizes what's happening, the exit doors are already locked. That's why education matters so much. Artists don't need to become lawyers, but they do need basic awareness. Knowing what standard percentages look like, understanding the difference between management and ownership, and recognizing red flags can change everything. Even one trusted independent advisor can prevent years of damage. The mental toll of situations like this often gets overlooked. When artists feel trapped financially, it affects how they create, how they move, and how they see the industry. Music turns into obligation instead of expression. Hustle turns into survival. And that shift slowly burns people out. What's worse is how common these stories are. They just don't always get told publicly. For every high-profile case, there are dozens more happening quietly behind the scenes. Artists losing control, falling behind financially, and blaming themselves for deals they never fully understood. That silence protects the system and keeps the cycle going. This is why transparency is so important. Talking about situations like this isn't about attacking anyone, it's about exposing patterns. When artists see real examples of how bad contracts play out long-term, it forces smarter conversations. It encourages people to slow down instead of rushing toward the first offer that looks flashy. There's also responsibility on labels, managers, and industry veterans. Experience shouldn't be used as leverage against someone younger. It should be used to protect them from making irreversible mistakes. Real leadership means creating fair structures that allow everyone to win, not just the person holding the paperwork. For upcoming artists watching this unfold, the message is clear. Talent alone isn't enough. Virality isn't enough. Hard work isn't enough. Without protection, success can actually put you in a worse position than before. The contracts you sign early will shape your life far longer than the songs that make you famous. Taking time doesn't mean missing opportunities. It means choosing the right ones. A real opportunity will still be there tomorrow. A bad deal only needs one rushed signature to last forever. Blueface's situation stands as a warning, but it can also serve a purpose. If it pushes even a few artists to slow down, get legal advice, and demand fairness, then it matters. If it sparks conversations that lead to better standards, it matters. The industry doesn't change overnight, but it does change when people stop ignoring the damage. Stories like this remind everyone that success without ownership isn't freedom. It's just another form of control. And until artists are taught that lesson early, the cycle will keep repeating.